So, when I get to a point where I want to put some solid stitch is really a beautiful texture. But what happens is it changes the tension in the cloth when you put a lot of stitches next to each other. Not so much just a line of stitch, but when you start to build it up. And on this cloth, there are many layers already in some sections. But on this section here, it was really just one layer of cloth. And I find that it's much easier to add another really thin layer to the back before I do any of this kind of stitching. So just from here up, I'm going to add another layer, and I'm just going to invisibly baste that. Managing layers with stitch is very important to build an even and beautifully draping cloth, one that will handle whatever work you put on it. And I think it's just as important on a large cloth or a small cloth. So because I know that I'm going to be doing a lot of stitch here, I'm adding this extra layer in so that the cloth has more body, and it will tend to pull up less and lay flat, and it feels better to stitch on two layers. And that's why finding some kind of very thin cloth to use to manage your layers is really a big deal, because it just, well, it feels right. You can sense that the thread will sit better. A lot of times you think it's your fault. You're pulling too tight, or you can't get it to, or it doesn't feel good when you're stitching it, or it's floppy or whatever. It's all about, the cloth being set up to accept the right kind of stitch and being stable. So I'll stitch maybe an inch apart all the way across just to hold this in place, then go back to stitching here. So far here it hasn't been necessary, and besides there's already multiple layers of cloth. Maybe when I get down here I will also add an extra layer.